You must be Samuel Rodriguez.
The lead attorney's voice cut through the coffee shop like ice. 4 bodyguards in black suits stood behind him. Sam's hands trembled, still holding a coffee pot. The old man he'd served every morning for 3 years, Theodore Lancaster, was dead. And these men had come for him. "Mr. Lancaster left you something in his will." Sam's heart stopped. Because the lonely old man who sat in the corner booth every Tuesday wasn't just any customer. He was one of the richest men in America, and Sam had no idea. But before we see what Sam inherits, subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, let me tell you how a single father's simple kindness changed his life forever. The bell above Beacon Street Cafe chimed at exactly 5:47 a.m., the same time it did every Tuesday morning for the past 3 years. The sound echoed through the nearly empty diner, mixing with the hiss of the ancient coffee maker and the sizzle of bacon on Hector's grill. Samuel Rodriguez looked up from wiping down the counter, a task he'd done so many times he could do it in his sleep, which was good because most mornings he was practically asleep on his feet. 4:15 a.m. That's when Sam's alarm went off every single day, 6 days a week. 4:15 in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Alphabet City, where he slept on a pull-out couch so Luke could have the bedroom. 4:15 stumbling to the bathroom in the dark so he wouldn't wake his 6-year-old son. 4:15 pulling on his black pants and white button-down shirt that served as his waiter uniform, splashing cold water on his face, and staring at the stranger in the mirror who looked 10 years older than 32. The apartment was small, cramped really. 600 square feet of worn carpet, peeling wallpaper, and a kitchenette so narrow you had to turn sideways to reach the stove. The building was one of those pre-war walk-ups that landlords kept barely functional because rent-stabilized tenants like Sam couldn't afford anything better. The radiator clanged like a dying animal. The pipes groaned. The upstairs neighbor played reggaeton until 2 a.m. most nights. The hallway smelled like a mixture of curry, cigarettes, and despair. But it was home. The only home Sam could afford on $2,400 a month. Every morning, Sam would leave breakfast on the table for Luke, usually cereal, sometimes toast with peanut butter if they had it. He'd write a little note on a post-it and stick it to the bowl. "Dad loves you. Remember your inhaler. Have the best day ever," with a little smiley face that Luke had started drawing on his own notes back to Dad. Mrs. Jamie Rodriguez, no relation, just a coincidence of last names, lived across the hall in 3C. She was a 68-year-old retired teacher from the Dominican Republic who'd taken pity on Sam 3 years ago when she'd heard him crying in the stairwell the night Jessica left. Since then, she'd become Sam's lifeline. Every morning at 7 a.m., she'd knock softly on Sam's door, let herself in with the spare key, and wake Luke up. She'd make sure he ate breakfast, took his asthma medication, and got to PS 19 by 8:15. And she refused to let Sam pay her more than $50 a week, even though she was worth 10 times that. "You're a good boy, Sammy," she'd tell him in her thick accent. "You remind me of my son. You take care of your baby, and I take care of you both. That's how family works." Sam's subway commute was 40 minutes if the trains were running on time, which they rarely were. He'd board the F train at Delancey Street, find a seat if he was lucky, and close his eyes for 20 precious minutes of half-sleep while the train rattled through the tunnel. Around him, the other early-morning commuters formed a silent fellowship of exhaustion. Nurses heading home from night shifts, construction workers heading to job sites, cleaning ladies with grocery bags full of supplies. Nobody made eye contact. Nobody spoke. They were all just trying to survive another day. Sam would arrive at Beacon Street Cafe at 5:25 a.m., 5 minutes early, because Tony Delgado, the owner, had a zero-tolerance policy for lateness. The cafe was located in a forgotten corner of the Lower East Side, wedged between a laundromat and a bodega that sold Lucy's and expired milk. The cafe itself looked like it hadn't been renovated since 1987. Faded mustard-yellow vinyl booths with duct tape patches, linoleum floors in a checkerboard pattern, warped and sticky, fluorescent lights that flickered and hummed, a jukebox in the corner that only played if you kicked it twice, and the smell, God, the smell, of burnt coffee, bacon grease, and pine sol that had seeped into the walls over decades. Tony Delgado, 62, was old school. Grey hair slicked back with too much pomade. Perpetual scowl. Grease-stained apron that he probably hadn't washed in weeks. He'd owned Beacon Street for 37 years and ran it like a drill sergeant ran boot camp. "Rodriguez, you call that clean? I can still see coffee rings." "Yes, Tony." "And don't yes Tony me. It's Mr. Delgado." "Yes, Mr. Delgado." But Tony had given Sam a chance when nobody else would. 3 years ago, when Sam walked in desperate for any job that would let him pick up Luke from school, Tony had looked at his resume, which included 2 years at Le Bernardin and a culinary degree from the Institute of Culinary Education, and laughed. "You want to work here? You're overqualified, kid. I need morning shift, 5:30 to 2. I have a son." Tony had studied him for a long moment, saw the desperation, the dark circles, the trembling hands of a man on the edge. $12 an hour plus tips, no benefits, 6 days, Tuesday through Sunday. You miss a shift, you're fired. Deal? Deal. That was 3 years ago. Sam was still making $12 an hour, still no benefits, still 6 days a week. But he'd never missed a shift, not once. Not when he had the flu. Not when Luke was sick. Not when his ancient Toyota broke down and he had to run 8 miles in the rain to make it on time. Because this job, this awful, exhausting minimum wage job, was what kept Luke fed and housed. The other waitress, Denise Murphy, was 54 and had been working at Beacon Street for 19 years. She was a tough Irish woman from Southie with bleached blonde hair, heavy eyeliner, and a Boston accent thick enough to cut with a knife. She smoked Virginia Slims on her breaks and talked about her ex-husband the way some people talked about Satan. "Mornin', Sammy," Denise said, not looking up from refilling salt shakers. "You look like shit." "Thanks, Denise." "Luke keep you up?" "Asthma attack at 2 a.m. Had to use the nebulizer." "That kid's inhaler prescription run out again?" Sam's jaw tightened. "Insurance only covers 1 inhaler a month. He needs 2. The extra one costs $120. Jesus, this country's fucked." "Yeah." Denise looked at him with something like sympathy. "You eat breakfast? Couldn't afford it?" She slid a plate across the counter. Eggs, toast, bacon. Hector made extra. "Eat." Denise, "Shut up and eat, Sammy. You're no good to anyone if you pass out." Sam ate, grateful beyond words for the small kindnesses that kept him alive. And then, at exactly 5:47 a.m., the bell chimed. Theodore Lancaster walked in. Sam looked up from wiping down the counter, and there he was. Theodore Lancaster, though Sam didn't know his last name back then. Just Mr. Theodore. The quiet old man who always sat in the same corner booth, ordered the same thing, and spoke in brief, gruff sentences that seemed to discourage conversation. Theodore looked exactly the same as he did every Tuesday. Thin white hair, combed neatly, wool coat that had probably cost a fortune once, but now looked as tired as its owner. Sharp grey eyes that seemed to see through people. Slow, careful movements of a man whose bones hurt. He was always alone. Always. But Sam never let that stop him from being kind. "Good morning, Mr. Theodore," Sam said with a genuine smile, grabbing the coffee pot before the old man even sat down. "The usual?" Theodore grunted, his version of yes, and lowered himself slowly into the worn vinyl booth, his joints creaking audibly. He was 76 years old, though he looked closer to 85. Thin white hair combed neatly to the side. Sharp grey eyes that seemed to see everything and trust nothing. A wool coat that had probably cost a fortune once, but now looked tired and old like its owner. Sam poured the coffee, black, no sugar, and set it down gently. Eggs over easy, wheat toast, no butter, cider fruit. Another grunt. Coming right up. Sam turned toward the kitchen, then paused. How'd you sleep last night? Theodore looked up, surprised. People didn't usually ask him questions. Fine, he said curtly. Good. It's supposed to rain later. You have an umbrella? I'll manage, Sam smiled. I'll grab you one from the back just in case. We've got extras. Theodore said nothing, but something flickered in his grey eyes. Not gratitude exactly, more like confusion, as if he couldn't quite figure out why this young waiter cared. Sam headed to the kitchen where Hector, the line cook, was already working the grill. Usual for Mr. Theodore, Sam called out. That old grump still comes in every week? Hector shook his head. Man never tips, never smiles. Why are you so nice to him? Sam shrugged. Why not? Doesn't cost me anything to be kind. Costs you tips, Hector muttered. You spend 10 minutes talking to him every time. Could be turning tables. Maybe, Sam said, but he's lonely. I can see it in his eyes, and I know what that feels like. Because Sam did know. He knew what it felt like to sit alone, to carry grief so heavy it bent your spine, to wake up every morning wondering if anyone in the world cared whether you existed. 3 years ago, when Jessica left and Sam found himself alone with a 2-year-old son, he'd felt that crushing loneliness. Even surrounded by people at the cafe every day, he'd felt invisible, like he was serving coffee to people who looked right through him. Sam had met Jessica Martinez at culinary school. She was studying hospitality management, beautiful and ambitious with plans to open her own catering company. They'd fallen in love fast. The kind of intense, all-consuming love that feels like destiny when you're 24 years old. They got married 6 months after they met in a small ceremony at City Hall with just a few friends watching. For a while, it was perfect. Sam got a job as a line cook at Le Bernardin, one of the best French restaurants in New York. The hours were brutal, 12, 14-hour days, but he was learning from masters. He was on his way to becoming an executive chef, maybe even opening his own place someday. Jessica was working as an event coordinator at a hotel. The money was decent. They had a tiny apartment in Astoria, but it was theirs. They were building a life together. Then Jessica got pregnant. They hadn't planned it. They were both 26, still trying to establish their careers. But when they saw the positive test, they decided to make it work. Sam was thrilled. He'd always wanted to be a dad. His own father, Miguel, had been his hero growing up. Sam wanted to be that for his son. Lucas Antonio Rodriguez was born on a cold February morning. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect dark curls, brown eyes like his mother, his father's smile. Sam held him in the hospital and felt a love so powerful it scared him. This tiny person, this perfect little life, was his responsibility now, his reason for existing. But Jessica struggled. Postpartum depression hit her hard. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't bond with the baby. Sam tried to help, taking over night feedings, hiring his mother Claire to come stay with them, suggesting therapy. But Jessica pulled further and further away. And then Sam's world collapsed. His father Miguel died in an electrical accident on a job site, electrocuted while working on faulty wiring in a warehouse in Queens. Miguel was only 53. Sam's mother Claire, already weak from years of smoking, had a heart attack at Miguel's funeral. She survived but was never the same. The grief hollowed her out. 2 years later, cancer finished what the heart attack started. Sam lost both parents in 2 years, and Jessica, drowning in her own depression, couldn't handle Sam's grief on top of everything else. She began staying out late, coming home drunk, disappearing for whole weekends. Sam would be home alone with 2-year-old Luke, calling Jessica's phone over and over, terrified that something had happened to her. One night, she came home at 3 a.m., makeup smudged, smelling like cigarettes and cologne that wasn't Sam's. "Where were you?" Sam's voice was raw from crying, from fear, from exhaustion. "Out." "Out where?" "Jessica, I've been calling you for 6 hours. Luke was crying for you. I thought you were dead." "Maybe you'd be better off if I was." The words hung in the air like poison. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" Jessica's eyes were cold, empty. "I never wanted this, Sam. The baby, the apartment, this life. I wanted a career. I wanted to travel. I wanted to matter. And instead I'm stuck here with a kid I didn't want and a husband who's so busy grieving his perfect dead parents that he can't see I'm dying inside. Jessica, please, let me help. We can get through this together." "I don't want to get through it. I want out." She left a week later. While Sam was at work, his last week at Le Bernardin before he had to quit because Jessica refused to watch Luke anymore, she packed her clothes, emptied their joint bank account, taking $200 that Sam had been saving for Luke's preschool, and left a note. "Sam, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I need a different life. You're a good father. Luke will be fine with you. Don't try to find me." Jessica, no phone number, no forwarding address. She just disappeared. Sam had stood in their empty bedroom, holding that note, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under him. He had a 2-year-old son, no wife, no parents, no support system, a high-pressure job that required 60-hour weeks, and $847 left in his checking account. He'd cried until he couldn't breathe. Then Luke had toddled into the room, dragging his stuffed elephant, and climbed into Sam's lap. "Sad, Daddy?" "Yeah, buddy. Daddy's sad." "It's okay." Luke patted Sam's face with his tiny hand. "I hear." And in that moment, Sam made a choice. He could fall apart, or he could be the father Luke needed. He chose Luke. He quit Le Bernardin, took the job at Beacon Street Cafe because it was the only place that would hire him for morning shifts, moved to the cheaper apartment in Alphabet City, started living on $2,400 a month, started saying no to everything that cost money, new clothes, haircuts, restaurants, movies, anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. For 3 years, Sam's life had been a relentless grind of survival. Wake up, go to work, serve coffee to people who barely saw him, come home, pick up Luke, play with him, make dinner, do homework, give him a bath, read him stories, tuck him in, pay bills, cry quietly in the bathroom, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. The loneliness was crushing. Sam had no friends anymore, no time for them, no romantic prospects. Who wanted to date a broke single father with no future? No dreams left, just the daily work of keeping his son fed and housed and loved. So when he saw that same emptiness in Theodore's eyes, he recognized it immediately. The loneliness of someone the world had forgotten. The old man ate his breakfast in silence, as he always did. Sam checked on him twice, refilling his coffee, asking if the eggs were cooked right, mentioning that his son Luke had just learned to ride a bike without training wheels. Theodore listened, but rarely responded. Yet he never told Sam to go away. And every Tuesday, without fail, he came back. What Sam didn't know was that Theodore Lancaster was worth $4.2 billion. Theodore Edward Lancaster had been born in 1947 in a working-class neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey. His father was a factory worker, his mother a seamstress. They had nothing, no money, no connections, no advantages except the relentless work ethic they drilled into their only son. "You want something in this life, Teddy?" his father used to say. "You work for it. Nobody's gonna hand you anything. Theodore took that lesson to heart. He worked 2 jobs through high school, earned a scholarship to Rutgers, studied engineering, graduated top of his class, got a job at a small manufacturing plant making industrial parts. And at 25, with $8,000 borrowed from his parents and a business plan scribbled on notebook paper, he started Lancaster Industries. The first 10 years were brutal, 18-hour days, sleeping in the factory, eating vending machine dinners, losing contracts, nearly going bankrupt 3 times. But Theodore was relentless. He underbid competitors, he worked weekends, he personally delivered orders to prove reliability, and slowly, impossibly, his company grew. By 1980, Lancaster Industries was making $10 million a year. By 1990, $100 million. By 2000, they'd gone public, and Theodore was worth $500 million. By 2010, after strategic acquisitions in pharmaceuticals and real estate, he was worth $3.7 billion. Forbes profiled him. Wall Street called him a genius. Politicians asked for his endorsement. He had penthouses in Manhattan, estates in the Hamptons, a vacation home in Aspen. He sat on boards. He funded hospitals, libraries, university programs. The Theodore Lancaster name was synonymous with success. He'd had everything: money, power, respect. And he'd lost the only things that mattered. He'd married Margaret Hollis in 1972, when they were both 25. She was a nurse at University Hospital in Newark, kind and patient and everything Theodore wasn't. She'd loved him when he was nobody, when he was just a broke engineer with big dreams and calloused hands. She'd worked double shifts to help pay for the factory lease. She'd believed in him when nobody else did. And Theodore had repaid her love by never being home. For 40 years, Theodore chose work over Margaret, missed anniversaries for board meetings, forgot birthdays because of acquisition deals, cancelled vacations for emergency calls. Margaret never complained. She raised their son Thomas alone. She attended school plays and parent-teacher conferences by herself. She ate dinner across from an empty chair most nights. In 2011, Margaret was diagnosed with stage IV ovarian cancer. The doctors said she'd had symptoms for years, but never got checked because she was too busy taking care of everyone else. Theodore took a leave of absence, the first in his career. He sat with her through chemo, held her hand through the pain, promised he'd change, be better, be present. "It's too late for me, Teddy," Margaret had said, her voice weak, her beautiful face gaunt from sickness. "But it's not too late for Thomas and Elena. Don't make the same mistakes with them." "I won't. I promise." Margaret died 3 months later. Theodore didn't keep his promise. He threw himself back into work with even more intensity. Work was easier than grief, easier than facing the empty house, easier than admitting he'd wasted 40 years chasing money while his wife died of loneliness. His son Thomas tried to reach him, invited him to dinners, asked him to come meet his granddaughter Elena, begged him to slow down, take time to heal, be part of the family. But Theodore was already gone, hollowed out, unreachable. And then, 7 years ago, on Theodore's 70th birthday, Thomas drove into Manhattan for a dinner Theodore had organized. A business dinner, not a family celebration. Thomas had begged Theodore to make it just the two of them, maybe bring little Elena, make it about family for once. Theodore said no. This was an important dinner. Investors would be there. This wasn't the time for sentiment. Thomas drove anyway, hoping maybe he could convince his father to leave early, come home, be a grandfather for once. He never made it. A drunk driver ran a red light on the FDR drive. Thomas's car flipped 3 times. He died on impact. He was 38 years old, and the last words he'd said to his father were on a voicemail. "Dad, I know you're busy, but could you please just once choose me over work? Just once. I love you. See you tonight." Theodore had listened to that voicemail at Thomas's funeral, listened to his son begging for love, begging for time, begging for just one evening where he mattered more than business, and Theodore hadn't even called him back. At the funeral, Theodore's granddaughter, Elena, 25 years old, eyes red from crying, walked up to him and said quietly, "You killed him." "Elena, please. He was driving to see you, because you couldn't be bothered to come to him, because even on your birthday you chose work over family. You've always chosen work over family, and now he's dead." Her voice broke. "I hope your company was worth it, because it cost you everything." She walked away, and she never spoke to him again. Theodore tried. God, he tried. He called her every week, sent letters, showed up at her apartment, tried to explain, to apologize, to somehow make up for 45 years of neglect. But Elena was done. She'd lost her father. Her mother had died of breast cancer when Elena was a baby. And her grandfather, the only family she had left, was the reason her father was dead. She blocked his number, returned his letters unopened, got a restraining order when he wouldn't stop coming to her apartment. Theodore had lost everything that mattered: his wife, his son, his granddaughter, and all he had left was money. Mountains of money that couldn't buy back a single moment with the people he'd lost. He'd pushed everyone away, his lawyers, his business partners, even his board of directors. He'd become bitter, cold, impossible to be around. He'd withdrawn from public life, stopped attending galas, stopped giving interviews, just disappeared into his grief. The only place he went anymore was Beacon Street Cafe. Every Tuesday, 5:47 a.m., corner booth, because there was one person in the world who still treated him like a human being: Samuel Rodriguez, a 32-year-old single father who worked a dead-end job and had every reason to be bitter himself, but wasn't, and Theodore was testing him. Every week, Theodore came in and acted difficult, cold, grumpy, dismissive. He never tipped, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he wanted to see if Sam would stop being nice. He wanted to see if Sam's kindness was transactional, like everything else in Theodore's world. He wanted to see if Sam would eventually get tired of the grumpy old man who gave nothing back. Sam never did. Every week Theodore came in and acted difficult, cold, grumpy, dismissive. He never tipped, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he wanted to see if Sam would stop being nice. Sam never did. Week after week, month after month, year after year, Sam greeted him with the same warm smile, the same genuine interest, the same small kindnesses that required nothing in return. And slowly, something in Theodore's frozen heart began to thaw. It started small. One Tuesday, Theodore asked Sam a question. "How old is your son?" Sam, surprised, smiled. 6. Just turned 6 last month." "What's his name?" "Luke. Lucas Antonio Rodriguez, actually, named after my father." Theodore nodded slowly. "My grandson would be about that age now." "Would be?" Theodore's face hardened. "He's alive. I just haven't seen him in years." Sam sat down across from Theodore, something he'd never done before. Tony, the owner, glared from across the cafe, but Sam ignored him. "That must be hard," Sam said quietly. "It's my own fault." Theodore's voice was rough, like gravel. "I wasn't a good father, or grandfather. I chose work over family. And now it's too late." "It's never too late," Sam said. "If your grandson is alive, you can still reach out. My dad used to tell me, every day you wake up is another chance to make things right." Theodore looked at Sam for a long moment. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was. He died 7 years ago. I'd give anything for one more chance to talk to him." Something in Theodore's expression cracked, just for a second. Then the hard mask returned. "I should go," Wait. Sam stood and walked to the back. He returned with a small umbrella, faded blue with a broken spoke. For the rain. Theodore stared at the umbrella like it was made of gold. I can't take this. Sure you can. I've got two. Sam smiled. Just bring it back next Tuesday. Theodore took the umbrella with trembling hands. Thank you. No problem, Mr. Theodore. The old man left. And for the first time in 3 years, Sam saw him smile. Just barely. But it was there. From that day on, their Tuesday morning conversations grew longer. Theodore began to open up, talking about his late wife, his regrets, the grandson he'd lost contact with. And Sam listened. Really listened. Without judgment. Without trying to fix anything. Just present. My granddaughter's name is Elena, Theodore said one morning. Elena Lancaster. She's 28 now. Brilliant. Beautiful. She runs a non-profit helping underprivileged kids get into college. Everything I should have been. Have you tried calling her? 100 times. She won't answer. Theodore's voice broke. She blames me for her father's death. He was driving to my birthday dinner when he crashed. She thinks I cared more about business than family. And she's right. Maybe, Sam said gently, but people can change. You're not the same man you were 7 years ago. Are you? Theodore looked at Sam with wet eyes. No, I'm not. Then tell her that. Write her a letter. Show her you've changed. What if it's too late? What if it's not? Theodore sat with that question for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, You're a good man, Samuel Rodriguez. Your son is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. What Sam didn't know was that Theodore had started investigating him, not in a creepy way, but Theodore was a businessman. He researched everything. He learned that Sam was drowning in debt, that he worked 6 days a week just to barely make rent, that he'd given up his dream of opening a restaurant to raise his son alone, that despite having every reason to be angry at the world, Sam chose kindness. And Theodore made a decision. He was going to change Sam's life. But he needed to be sure first. Sure that Sam wasn't kind because he wanted something. Sure that Sam would stay humble even with money. Sure that Sam was the real deal. So Theodore kept testing him. One Tuesday, Theodore accidentally left his wallet on the table with $500 bills visible. Sam ran after him into the rain, soaking wet, to return it. Another Tuesday, Theodore was rude to Sam, snapping at him, criticizing the food, complaining about the service. Sam stayed patient and kind. Another Tuesday, Theodore left a $1,000 tip on the table. Sam chased him down again. Mr. Theodore, I think you made a mistake. This is too much. No mistake. I can't accept this. Why not? Because you're my friend. And friends don't need to pay each other to care. Theodore's eyes filled with tears. He'd found what he was looking for. That night, Theodore called his lawyer. Robert, I'm changing my will. 3 weeks later, Theodore Lancaster died in his sleep, peacefully, with a smile on his face. And on a rainy Tuesday morning, when Sam arrived at Beacon Street Cafe at 5:30 a.m., there was a black town car parked outside, 4 bodyguards in black suits, and 3 men in expensive lawyer's suits standing at the counter. Tony looked terrified. Sam, these men are asking for you. Sam's heart raced. Had he done something wrong? Was this about Luke? About his debt? The lead attorney stepped forward, tall, grey-haired with wire-rimmed glasses. You must be Samuel Rodriguez. Yes? My name is Robert Chen. I'm the executor of Theodore Lancaster's estate. Sam's blood ran cold. Mr. Theodore? I'm afraid Mr. Lancaster passed away 3 weeks ago. The coffee pot slipped from Sam's hand, shattering on the floor. What? I'm very sorry for your loss. I understand you two were close. Sam couldn't breathe. Close? I didn't even know his last name until just now. Theodore Lancaster, the billionaire? Yes. Sam sat down hard on the nearest stool. Theodore, his Tuesday morning friend, the lonely old man he'd served coffee to for 3 years, was one of the richest men in America. "Why are you here?" Sam's voice was barely a whisper. Robert Chen opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. "Because, Mr. Rodriguez, Theodore Lancaster left you something in his will." Sam's vision blurred. "What?" "Mr. Lancaster bequeathed to you a trust fund in the amount of $2 million to be used for your son's education and your personal financial security. Additionally, he left you a building in Manhattan, a commercial property currently valued at approximately $1.8 million. He suggested in his notes that you might want to use it for your restaurant." The world stopped. Sam couldn't hear anything. Not Tony's gasp, not Denise dropping a tray, not the traffic outside. $2 million. A building, his restaurant. "I don't understand," Sam whispered. "Why?" Robert Chen smiled, the first warm expression he'd shown. "Mr. Lancaster left you a letter. He asked that I read it to you." He pulled out an envelope, opened it, and began to read in Theodore's voice. "Dear Sam, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. And I imagine you're confused, maybe even angry that I lied to you about who I was. But I needed to know if your kindness was real. I needed to know if there were still good people in this world who helped others without expecting anything in return. You proved that there are. Every Tuesday morning for 3 years, you treated me like I mattered. You asked about my day. You listened to my stories. You gave me your umbrella in the rain. You called me your friend. You gave me something money can't buy. You gave me back my humanity. I spent my whole life chasing success and pushing away everyone I loved. My wife died thinking I cared more about business than her. My son died on his way to a dinner I almost cancelled. My granddaughter won't speak to me because I failed her when she needed me most. I destroyed my family with neglect. But you, Sam, you showed me what really matters. You work a minimum wage job and raise your son alone, and somehow you're richer than I ever was. Because you have love, you have purpose, you have Luke. I'm giving you this money not because I pity you, but because I want to invest in goodness. I want your son to have every opportunity. I want you to build that restaurant you dreamed about. I want you to keep being the man you are, the man who taught an old fool that kindness is never wasted. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for treating me like a human being. Thank you for showing me that I could still be worth something to someone. You gave me 3 years of friendship that meant more than 70 years of wealth. And I hope this gift lets you live the life you deserve. Your friend always, Theodore Lancaster. P.S. Take care of Eleanor for me. She needs someone who understands kindness. I think you two will get along. Robert Chen folded the letter. The cafe was silent, except for the sound of Sam sobbing. "There's one more thing," Robert said gently. "Mr. Lancaster arranged for you to meet his granddaughter, Eleanor Lancaster. She's waiting outside in the car. He wanted you two to execute the charitable foundation he left behind together. If you're willing." Sam wiped his eyes, nodded. "Yes, of course." Robert gestured to one of the bodyguards, who opened the cafe door, and Elena Lancaster walked in. She was 28, with dark brown hair pulled back in a professional ponytail, wearing a grey blazer and jeans. She had Theodore's sharp grey eyes, but hers were softer, warmer, filled with grief and curiosity. She looked at Sam. "You're Samuel Rodriguez?" "Sam. People call me Sam." "I'm Elena." Her voice cracked. "My grandfather. He talked about you. In his last few weeks, you were all he talked about." "I didn't know," Sam said. "I didn't know who he was." "I know. That's why he loved you." Elena's eyes filled with tears. He said you were the only person who saw him as just Theodore. Not a billionaire, not a CEO. Just an old man who needed a friend. Sam stood, walked over, and without thinking, pulled Eleanor into a hug. She stiffened for a second, then broke down crying. "I'm so sorry," Sam whispered. "He loved you so much. He talked about you every week. He was so proud of you." "He never told me that." "I think he was too scared, too ashamed of the years he wasted." They stood there crying together, two strangers bound by the love of a lonely old man who'd taught them both what really mattered. Over the next few months, Sam's life transformed in ways he never imagined. The day the trust fund cleared was a Tuesday, fitting somehow. Sam had been at Beacon Street Cafe, going through his usual routine, when his phone buzzed with a notification from his bank app. He almost ignored it. Notifications from his bank were usually overdraft warnings or minimum balance alerts, but this one was different. Deposit 2,000 yuans, available balance 2,127.43. Sam stopped wiping the counter, read it again, then again. His hands started shaking so badly he had to sit down. "Sam, you okay?" Denise asked, concerned. I don't..." Sam couldn't form words. He showed her the phone. Denise's eyes went wide. "Holy shit!" "Language!" Tony barked from across the cafe, then saw Sam's face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Sam whispered. Everything's different now." The first thing Sam did, before he told anyone, before he celebrated, before he let himself believe it was real, was pay off his debts. $200 to Capital One, $4,100 to Chase, $2,800 to Discover, $3,900 in back rent to his landlord, $200 to the hospital for Luke's emergency room visit last year, $840 to Con Edison for the electric bills he'd been paying in installments. He sat at his tiny kitchen table at 2 a.m., laptop open, making payments. And with each payment successful message, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. A weight he'd been carrying for so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. When he finished, his checking account still had $1,978,960 in it. Sam put his head down on the table and cried. Not sad tears, relief tears. The kind of tears that come when you've been holding your breath for 3 years, and finally, you can breathe. The second thing Sam did was buy Luke new shoes. The kid had been wearing sneakers 2 sizes too small because Sam couldn't afford new ones. Now, Sam took Luke to the fancy shoe store in Soho where the sneakers cost $80 and they actually measured your feet properly. "Dad, these are so cool!" Luke jumped up and down in his new light-up sneakers. "You like them, buddy?" "I love them." Luke hugged Sam's legs. "Are we rich now?" "We're comfortable." "What's comfortable mean?" "It means Daddy doesn't have to worry about groceries anymore." "Does that mean we can get the good cereal, the one with the cartoon on the box?" Sam laughed through tears. "Yeah, buddy, we can get the good cereal." They bought $200 worth of groceries that day. Real groceries, fresh fruit, vegetables, the name brand cereal, actual orange juice instead of the powder mix, chicken breasts instead of the cheapest ground beef. Luke sat in the cart, eyes wide, watching his dad fill it up without checking prices or doing mental math. "Dad, are you sure we can afford all this?" "Yeah, buddy, we can afford it." That night, Sam made dinner in their tiny kitchen, chicken parmesan with real mozzarella, a side salad with vegetables Luke had picked out, and garlic bread from the bakery instead of the freezer section. They ate at their small table, and Luke said it was the best meal he'd ever had. Sam cried again, because his 6-year-old son thought chicken parmesan was a feast. The third thing Sam did was go see the building Theodore had left him. Robert Chen, the lawyer, met him at the address. a corner lot in the Lower East Side, a neighborhood that was half gentrified, half forgotten. The building was small, maybe 2,000 square feet, red brick, big windows. It had been a butcher shop in the 1960s, then a bodega, then a check cashing place. Now it sat empty, waiting. "It needs work," Robert said. "Probably $300,000 to $400,000 to gut and renovate. But the bones are good, and the location is excellent." Sam walked inside. The space was filthy, covered in dust and graffiti. Old shelves lined one wall. The floor was cracked linoleum. The ceiling had water damage. It smelled like mildew and failure. But Sam could see it. He closed his eyes and saw gleaming kitchen equipment, warm lighting, tables filled with families, the smell of his cooking filling the air. His restaurant, the dream he'd buried 3 years ago. "I'll take it," Sam said. That weekend, Sam brought Luke to see the building. The 6-year-old walked around the empty space, his footsteps echoing. "This is gonna be our restaurant, buddy." "Really? Really? What are we gonna call it?" Sam thought about Theodore, about those Tuesday mornings at Beacon Street Cafe, about a lonely old man who'd seen something in Sam that Sam hadn't seen in himself, about kindness that asked for nothing but gave everything in return. "Beacon Street," Sam said. "We're calling it Beacon Street Restaurant, after the cafe where I met a friend." "Was Mr. Theodore your friend?" Sam had told Luke about Theodore's death, about the inheritance, about the fact that the grumpy old man Sam sometimes mentioned had actually been a billionaire. Luke had listened with wide eyes, not fully understanding but knowing it was important. "Yeah, buddy, he was my friend, and I think he would have liked you. I wish I could have met him." "Me too." They stood in the empty building, imagining the future. For the first time in 3 years, Sam let himself dream. And it didn't hurt. But the biggest change wasn't the money or the building. It was Elena. Sam had been nervous about meeting her. What do you say to someone who blamed their grandfather for their father's death? How do you tell them that the man they hated had, in his last years, become something close to good? He needn't have worried. Elena Lancaster walked into Beacon Street Cafe that first morning with the lawyers, and Sam immediately saw Theodore in her. The same sharp grey eyes, the same careful way of observing everything before speaking, the same guarded expression that said, "I've been hurt before, and I'm not letting it happen again." She was 28, dressed in a professional grey blazer and jeans, her dark brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore no makeup, no jewelry except small silver earrings. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying grief for too long. "You're Samuel Rodriguez?" Her voice was soft but firm. "Sam. People call me Sam." "I'm Elena Lancaster." She hesitated. "My grandfather talked about you." "He talked about you too. Every Tuesday. You were his favorite subject." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know that. He was so proud of you, your work with underprivileged kids, your non-profit. He said you were everything he should have been. He never told me that." "I know. He wanted to. He was just scared." They sat in the booth, Theodore's booth, and talked for 3 hours. Sam told Elena everything, every Tuesday morning conversation, every story Theodore had shared about Margaret, about Thomas, about his regrets. Every time Theodore had asked Sam's advice about how to reach Elena. Every time Theodore had said, "I wish I could tell her I'm sorry." He was sorry, Sam said. At the end, that's all he felt. Regret for the years he wasted. Regret for choosing work over family. Regret for pushing you away. Eleanor cried, and Sam, without thinking, held her hand across the table. "Why did he leave you all this money?" Eleanor asked. "No offense, but you were his waiter. I was his friend, and I think I think I reminded him of who he used to be, before the money, when he was just a kid from Newark who wanted to build something, when he still believed kindness mattered. Elena nodded slowly. He wrote me a letter. Robert gave it to me. I haven't read it yet. I'm scared. Why? Because what if it's just excuses? What if he's still the same man who chose work over my father? Sam squeezed her hand. People can change, Elena, even at 76. I saw it happen. Theodore changed. He just ran out of time to show you. Elena cried harder. I wasted 5 years. 5 years I could have spent forgiving him, and now he's gone. He forgave you. He told me. He said you had every right to be angry. He said he hoped someday you'd be able to remember him as someone who tried, at the end, to be better. Will you help me read the letter? Elena asked suddenly. I don't think I can do it alone. Of course. They met the next day at a coffee shop in the West Village. Elena brought the letter, thick envelope, Theodore's handwriting on the front. They sat outside under an umbrella while people rushed past on the sidewalk. Eleanor's hands shook as she opened it. Sam sat quietly, giving her space. The letter was 12 pages, handwritten. Theodore's shaky, cursive filling page after page. Eleanor read it aloud, her voice breaking every few sentences. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine you're angry. Maybe you're relieved. Maybe you don't care at all. You'd have every right to feel any of those things. I need you to know something. Your father's death was my fault, not legally. I know the drunk driver was charged, convicted, sentenced, but morally, ethically, spiritually, it was my fault. Thomas was driving to see me, on my birthday, to a dinner I should have cancelled, to spend time with a father who'd never been there for him. I killed him by choosing work over family for 45 years. I killed him by being too important, too busy, too self-absorbed to just be his dad. Your grandmother tried to tell me. She begged me, Eleanor. In the hospital, dying of cancer I didn't notice because I was always at the office. She begged me not to make the same mistakes with Thomas, with you. I promised her I'd change. I lied. I threw myself into work even harder after she died, because work was easier than grief, easier than admitting I'd wasted 40 years chasing money while the woman I loved died alone. And then Thomas died. And you looked at me at his funeral and said, you killed him. And you were right. I've spent the last 7 years trying to apologize, trying to explain, trying to somehow earn your forgiveness, but I don't deserve forgiveness. I know that now. What I want you to know is this. I changed. Too late to matter, too late to fix anything, but I changed. I met a man named Samuel Rodriguez, a waiter at a diner I go to. He's 32, a single father, working a minimum wage job and drowning in debt. He has every reason to be bitter, angry, broken. But he's not. He's kind, patient, present. He loves his son more than anything in the world. He gave up his dreams to raise that boy, and he did it without complaint. He reminded me who I used to be, before the money. When your grandmother and I were young and broke and happy, when family was all that mattered. I'm leaving Sam $2 million and a building for his restaurant, not because I pity him, but because I want to invest in goodness. Because for 3 years, he treated me like I mattered, like I was still human. But more importantly, Elena, I'm leaving you the rest. $4.1 billion. Lancaster Industries, the foundation, everything. Not because you need it. You've built a beautiful life without my money. You're doing more good with your non-profit than I've done with a lifetime of wealth. I'm leaving it to you because I want you to have the choice to keep working, or to expand your programs, or to walk away and travel the world, or to burn it all and start fresh. Whatever you choose, I'll be proud. I was always proud. I just never told you. I'm also asking you to work with Sam. He and I discussed creating a foundation to help single parents. Parents like him who are doing everything right, but the system is designed to break them. I want you two to run it together, if you're willing. Not because you need him, but because I think you'll be good for each other. You both understand loss. You both know what it's like to be left behind. And you both, despite every reason not to, still believe in kindness. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm sorry I wasn't the grandfather you deserved. I'm sorry I chose work over you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you I loved you every single day. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I hope someday, when the anger fades, you'll remember me not as the man who killed your father, but as the man who tried, at the very end, to be better. Your grandfather, Theodore. By the end, both Elena and Sam were crying. He did change, Elena whispered. I can see it in his words. This isn't the man I knew. He wished he could tell you in person. Will you tell me about him, the version you knew? Yeah, I'd like that. And that's how it started. Coffee meetings to discuss Theodore, then dinners to plan the foundation, then weekends at the building, helping Sam design the restaurant layout. Then afternoons at the park with Luke, who'd decided Eleanor was the coolest person ever. Eleanor was brilliant, funny, passionate about her work. She'd started her non-profit, Second Chance Education, 5 years ago, helping kids from low-income families get into college. She ran it with 3 staff members and a shoestring budget, working 70-hour weeks for a salary of $40,000 a year. I could have asked my grandfather for money, she told Sam one night over Chinese food in his apartment. Luke was asleep in the bedroom. They sat on the floor, cartons spread between them. He offered, multiple times, but I didn't want his money. I wanted him. He knew that. It's why he respected you so much. Did he really talk about me every week? Every single week. He'd ask my advice. How do I reach her? What would you want to hear if you were her? Sam smiled at the memory. One time he asked if he should buy you a car. I told him you didn't want things. You wanted time. What did he say? He said, I don't have much time left, but maybe I can leave her something that matters. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. He did. He left me you. The words hung in the air. Sam looked at her, really looked at her, at this woman who'd appeared in his life like a gift from beyond the grave, this woman who made Luke laugh, who understood loss, who saw Sam not as a charity case, but as an equal. Elena, I know it's soon, she said quickly. I know we barely know each other. I know this is crazy, but I feel like Grandpa Theodore knew we'd be good for each other. I feel it too. They kissed, soft and tentative at first, then deeper. And when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. Luke's gonna flip out, Sam said. He keeps asking if you're gonna be his new mom. Elena laughed. What do you tell him? I tell him it's complicated, but honestly, I hope so. Me too. She and Sam began working together on Theodore's charitable foundation, an organization dedicated to helping single parents start small businesses. Every week, they met to review applications, make grants, and plan events. And every week, Sam found himself looking forward to seeing her. Elena was brilliant, passionate, funny. She'd inherited her grandfather's sharp mind, but had a warmth Theodore had lost decades ago. She told Sam about her childhood, how Theodore had missed her birthdays, her graduations, every important moment, how she'd begged him to just be present, to just care about something other than work. And then my dad died, Elena said one evening over coffee, and I blamed Grandpa. I told him I hated him. I told him I never wanted to see him again. Her voice broke, and I didn't. For 5 years I refused every call, every letter, every attempt, and now he's gone and I can't take it back. He forgave you, Sam said quietly. "He told me. He said it was his fault, that you had every right to be angry." "Did he? Did he talk about me a lot?" "Every Tuesday. You were his favorite topic. He was so proud of your work, so proud of the woman you'd become." Elena cried, and Sam held her hand. Something shifted between them that night. What had started as a professional partnership, two people executing a dead man's will, became something deeper. They began meeting outside of work. Coffee on Saturday mornings, lunch on weekdays, dinners that stretched late into the night. Elena met Luke and fell in love with the bright, funny 6-year-old who asked a million questions and gave hugs that could heal wounds. "Your dad is pretty cool," Elena told Luke one afternoon while they were painting the new restaurant. "I know," Luke said seriously. "He's the best dad in the world." "I think you're right." Luke looked up at her with paint on his nose. "Are you going to be my new mom?" Elena's face turned bright red. Sam, overhearing from across the room, laughed. "Luke, you can't just ask people that." "Why not? You like her. She likes you. Isn't that how it works?" From the mouths of babes. That night, after Luke was asleep, Sam and Elena sat on the fire escape of his apartment, looking out at the city lights. "Sorry about Luke," Sam said. "He's direct." Elena smiled. "He's perfect, just like his dad." Sam looked at her, really looked at her. "Elena, I know," she said softly. "Me too. This is crazy. We've only known each other 6 months. My grandfather knew you for 3 years and left you his entire heart in a letter. Time doesn't matter when you know." "Know what?" Elena took his hand. "That some people come into your life and change everything." Sam kissed her, and for the first time in years, he felt complete. 1 year later, on a Tuesday morning, because of course it was a Tuesday, Beacon Street Restaurant opened its doors for the first time. The renovation had taken 9 months, $380,000, countless sleepless nights, arguments with contractors, permit delays, moments when Sam thought it would never happen. But Elena had been there every step of the way, helping pick out light fixtures, painting walls, learning the difference between commercial-grade refrigeration and residential, holding Sam when he cried from exhaustion and fear, reminding him why he was doing this. The restaurant was beautiful, not fancy. Sam had deliberately kept it accessible, affordable, welcoming. Exposed brick walls, warm Edison bulb lighting, mismatched vintage chairs and tables Sam had found at flea markets, an open kitchen so diners could watch the cooking, and in the back corner, Theodore's booth, with a small bronze plaque that read, "Reserved for Mr. Theodore, friend, family, forever." The menu was a love letter to Sam's heritage. Mofongo with garlic shrimp, his father Miguel's recipe, Irish lamb stew, his mother Claire's specialty, pernil with tostones, pastelon, boxty with bacon, shepherd's pie with a Puerto Rican twist. Desserts included flan, tres leches cake, and Irish apple tart. Everything was made from scratch. Everything was made with love, and everything cost less than $20 so working families could afford to eat there. Opening night was invitation only. Sam had invited everyone who'd helped him survive the hard years. Mrs. Jamie from across the hall, who'd watched Luke every morning for 3 years. The bodega owner who'd let Sam buy on credit when he was short. The woman at the laundromat who'd given Luke free candy. The teacher at PS19 who'd bought Luke school supplies with her own money. These were Sam's people, the invisible ones, the ones who kept the world running while nobody noticed. Hector, the line cook from Beacon Street Cafe, was now Sam's head chef. Sam had offered him $65,000 a year, more than double what Tony paid him, and profit sharing. Hector had cried. Denise, the tough waitress with a heart of gold, was the restaurant manager. $55,000 a year, plus benefits and a month of paid vacation. She'd hugged Sam so hard she cracked his ribs. Even Tony Delgado had come, dressed in an actual clean shirt for once. He'd walked around the restaurant with tears in his eyes, touching the walls like he couldn't believe it was real. "I always knew you'd make it, kid," Tony said, his voice rough. "I wouldn't have made it without you giving me a chance." "Yeah, well, don't go getting sentimental on me." But Tony was crying. They both were. Luke, now 7 years old, ran around the restaurant in a tiny chef's jacket that said "Junior Chef" on the back, telling everyone, "My dad made all this, and Miss Elena helped, and we're gonna get married and be a family." Sam blushed. Elena laughed, because Luke wasn't wrong. 6 months ago, on the roof of Sam's apartment building at Sunset, Sam had gotten down on one knee with a ring he'd bought with money he'd saved from the trust fund. Not an expensive ring, just a simple band with a small diamond, but it was his. "Elena Lancaster, you came into my life because a grumpy old man saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and through his gift, I found you. I found someone who understands loss, who believes in kindness, who loves my son like he's her own. Will you marry me?" Eleanor had said yes before he finished the question. They'd set the wedding for the following spring. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. At Beacon Street restaurant, of course, in Theodore's booth, because that's where it all began. On opening night, Elena stood beside Sam, wearing a simple black dress and the engagement ring, watching the restaurant fill with life. People laughing, kids running, the smell of Sam's cooking filling the air. "He'd be proud of you," Eleanor whispered. "He'd be proud of both of us." The New York Times food critic had come that night, anonymously, as they always did. 2 weeks later, the review came out. "Beacon Street restaurant is more than a meal. It's a homecoming. Chef Samuel Rodriguez has created something rare in New York's cutthroat food scene, a place that feeds both body and soul. The mofongo is perfection. The Irish lamb stew tastes like love. But what makes Beacon Street special isn't the food, though it's exceptional. It's the heart. You can taste it in every bite. The care, the history. The belief that food should bring people together, not divide them by price point. In a city of Michelin stars and $200 tasting menus, Beacon Street is a revolutionary act of kindness. 5 stars. Not just for the food, but for the vision. The review changed everything. Reservations booked out 6 weeks. Food bloggers came. Instagram influencers posted. Lines formed outside. Sam had to hire 3 more cooks, 2 more servers, a sous chef. Beacon Street became the hottest restaurant in New York. But Sam never changed the prices, never made it exclusive, never forgot why he'd built it. "This restaurant is for people like me," Sam told a reporter from Food and Wine magazine. "People working 2 jobs, single parents, families on a budget. People who deserve good food made with love but can't afford $50 entrees. If I wanted to get rich, I'd be working at Le Bernardin. I'm here to feed my community." The article went viral. Sam became the face of accessible, community-focused dining. Other chefs started following his model: good food, fair prices, taking care of staff. And through it all, Sam never forgot Theodore. Every Tuesday morning, before the restaurant opened, Sam would sit in Theodore's booth with a cup of black coffee, no sugar, just like Theodore liked it, and talk to his friend. "We did it, Mr. Theodore. The restaurant's a success. Elena and I are getting married. Luke's doing great in school, straight A's, can you believe it? The foundation has helped 47 single parents start businesses. We're changing lives." Sam would sit there drinking coffee, imagining Theodore across from him, grumpy, proud, smiling in his quiet way. "Thank you," Sam would say, "for seeing something in me, for believing in kindness, for giving me more than money, for giving me purpose. And somehow, in the warmth of the morning light, Sam felt Theodore's presence. A gentle reminder that love never dies. It just changes form. They'd announced the Theodore Lancaster Foundation that morning of the grand opening, a $10 million endowment. Elena had added $8 million to Sam's $2 million, to help single parents start businesses, go back to school, and build better lives. The first grant recipient was Carmen Rodriguez, a single mother of 3 in the Bronx who wanted to open a bakery. She'd been working 3 jobs to support her kids. Sam and Elena gave her $50,000, helped her find a space, connected her with a business mentor. 6 months later, Carmen's bakery opened to lines around the block. She was the first of many. Over the next 2 years, the Theodore Lancaster Foundation would help 127 single parents. A daycare center in Queens, a landscaping business in Brooklyn, a mobile mechanic service in the Bronx, a catering company in Harlem. Each one a life changed. Each one a ripple from Theodore's kindness. Sam had learned something from Theodore, that wealth wasn't measured in dollars, it was measured in lives touched, in kindness given, in love shared. 2 years later, Sam and Eleanor got married at Beacon Street Restaurant on a Tuesday morning, because of course it was a Tuesday. Luke was the ring-bearer, wearing a tiny tuxedo and taking his job very seriously. Mrs. Jamie cried. Hector and Denise stood up as Sam's best man and maid of honor. Tony walked Elena down the aisle because her father couldn't. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, Luke shouted, "Nobody better! This is the best day ever!" Everyone laughed. Elena and Sam kissed. And in Theodore's booth, where a single place setting always waited, Sam had placed a photo of Theodore, young, smiling, with Margaret by his side. "You're here with us," Sam whispered to the photo. "You're part of this family." That night, after the guests had left and Luke had fallen asleep upstairs in the apartment above the restaurant, Sam had bought the building and converted the top floor into a home. Sam and Elena sat in the empty dining room, holding hands. "Do you think he knew?" Elena asked. "That we'd fall in love?" "I think he hoped. I think that's why he put us together. He gave us everything." "Not everything," Sam said, squeezing her hand. "He gave us a chance. We did the rest." They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by the life they'd built. And outside, the city hummed with possibility, with second chances, with the understanding that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, a cup of coffee, a warm smile, a moment of genuine connection, can change everything. 3 years later, Elena gave birth to a daughter. They named her Margaret Theodore Rodriguez, Maggie for short. Luke, now 10, was obsessed with his baby sister. He'd hold her for hours, telling her stories about her namesakes, the great-grandmother and great-great-grandfather she'd never meet, but whose love had made her existence possible. Sam would watch his family, his son, his wife, his daughter, and feel overwhelming gratitude for Theodore, for chance encounters, for Tuesday mornings, for kindness given without expectation of return. And every Tuesday, without fail, Sam still sat in Theodore's booth with his black coffee and talked to his friend. "You should see her, Mr. Theodore. Maggie. She has your eyes. Grey, sharp, like she's already figuring out the world. Eleanor says she has your stubbornness too." Sam smiled, tears in his eyes. "Thank you for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing I was worth more than my circumstances, for teaching me that kindness is never wasted." And in the quiet of the empty restaurant, Sam felt what he always felt in that booth: peace, purpose, and the enduring presence of a friend who changed his life with nothing more than the gift of being seen. "Thank you," Sam whispered to the ceiling, knowing somehow Theodore was listening. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness, A smile, a conversation, a cup of coffee given with genuine care can change everything. Theodore Lancaster had been one of the richest men in America, but the greatest gift he ever gave wasn't money. It was teaching Sam and Eleanor that the only wealth that matters is the love you give. And in the end, that love came back 100-fold. Sam never forgot those Tuesday mornings. Every week, he reserved the corner booth at Beacon Street Restaurant from 5:30 to 7 a.m. It was always kept empty, with a small brass plaque that read, "Reserved for Theodore, friend, teacher, family." And every Tuesday morning, Sam would pour 2 cups of black coffee, set one at the empty booth, and say quietly, "Good morning, Mr. Theodore," the usual. And somehow, in the warmth of the restaurant he'd built, in the love of the family he'd found, in the kindness he continued to give every single day, Sam felt Theodore smile.